Hey folks, Sam from the Danger Planet here, and today we're going to be doing the last in our series of tier lists, where we talk about all the masters in a faction, rate them from S, which means totally OP, to D, which is basically why bother. And this time we're going to be doing the newest faction in the game, Explorer Society, and I'm really excited for it because this is my second faction. It's the first faction I've played besides Bayou for as long as I've been playing. And it's a faction Doug plays a lot as well. So we're hoping to share our views on the Explorer Society, and we're joined by the guys from Badfo Haku, Landon and Haku, and they're going to be talking all about the different masters and the versatile and outer keyword hires that really make the faction tick.
I guess we're just going to start right out here with Cooper. Cooper is a highly underrated pick, I feel like, especially now that we're in GG3 and having experienced enough of the meta of GG3 to feel a lot more comfortable about it. I think he's a pretty easy for me slot into tier A. Everything he does pretty exceptionally. His gun's really nice. The crew is pretty decent. The support they've gotten in a couple of their title boxes have been pretty large for explorers in general, but I think they've worked particularly well in Cooper. That being Jin, getting last activation control, especially for your master who you want to shoot in the face a bunch of times. Yeah, overall pretty good. Just big guns, go bang.
So I really like Cooper. I think one of the things that buoys Cooper up a lot is that he actually has a really good keyword. Like a lot of ES masters are very strong, but a lot of the ES, the drop off in quality once you get past the first few really good models is pretty sharp. And I think Cooper's keyword is full of models you actually do want to play. Like I would play Crypsis, Vitagi, both dogs, Model 9 sometimes. I think there's a lot of good stuff there. That said, I don't know about A. I think at worst it would be high B, so maybe low A, high B. But for me, it's just a little tougher, given that a lot of his crew kind of wants to hang back and shoot. And this is a GG that really kind of pushes you onto objectives more. But I do understand that his gun like absolutely is amazing and just deletes models, and especially post Malifaux Burns, where people are running these like really key enforcers with 7 health or like 6 health and armor, which is exactly where Cooper wants his targets to be. That maybe gives him some. So I could see him in A, but my own pick would be high B, just because I do think there are some pools that maybe a little bit tougher for him.
I think by the same point that you have to stand on objectives in this GG, most of them are in the center line, right? And it's not that hard to get there. But more importantly than that, you start with a bunch of models on the center line that can walk to jam up your opponent to stop them from getting on objectives. And on top of that, you just have pit traps as a sub-theme of the crew that can really make holding area much easier. Just because once there's a bunch of damage one injured stuff all the way in the field, people don't really want to approach that. So I agree with what Haku said here in that I'm pretty sure he's A. Like, there's pretty much a lot of strategies that he likes to play actively in this GG, and I don't even think he's bad at like wagons, which is what I would say he's the worst at, right? So overall, I'm definitely just a fan.
The final word of the Pope?
Final word.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he deserves to be an A tier. It's funny because when I was looking, when GG3 released, one of the first masters that I actually looked back into was Cooper 1. For a lot of the reasons that you guys have brought up, specifically, I was looking at him in Cursed Objects. I was also looking at him as a result of all of the Malifaux Burns enforcers kind of flooding into the meta that he just loves to like one-shot or two-shot or effectively single activation, take out. And I do think he offers some ranged punchiness that ES as a faction in general can otherwise lack unless it's like mid-short range punchiness from like Nexus 2, and that's a very different thing than like a single big shot. So I'm actually pretty excited to try him out in GG3 a bunch. I'm going to be playing him actually this coming Monday in a prep game with Rich from our team, practicing for our local. So I think at the end of the day, I think he's back end of A. I don't think he's like top of A, but I kind of put him at the back end of A in my mind.
All right, well, we'll move on to Cooper 2, who I think, honestly, most of the time, I actually just think he's a lesser version of A. I think there are specific pools he's better in. That being said, I'm not the biggest fan of him. So I would, while Cooper 1, as you guys are pointing out, is probably lowish A, I think this guy is just lowish B. He'll have his times to shine over Cooper 1, but most of the time you're going to go 1 and then use this guy as your fallback if you really just need big beaters you can obey on the midline instead of just shooting everything that exists on the midline.
So I really like this Cooper. I think I would probably just switch the positions of them the way you have them. I think that stealth is on a master is really, really, really good. The game's really dangerous right now, and having to just have one avenue of attack on your master that you don't have to worry about is pretty nice. I also like that he, does the pit traps himself. Because I think, as I think Landon, you pointed this out, pit traps are a really strong part of the crew in this GG, and he's really, really good at using them. I think smokescreen is a really absurd trigger. And so generally, I mean, I think that I don't think that he's necessarily high A, even if he is an A, but I do like that he has this flexibility and he's a little bit less one-dimensional than the original Cooper. But I understand that when you're taking him, you're also necessarily leaning on either out of keyword hires or some of the weaker models in the keyword. And I do think the buffs he offers to those models is very, very good. But it is something you have to keep in mind that I don't love the Malisaurus. I don't love putting it on the table, and you kind of have to take it if you're playing Cooper 2. So, you are inherently playing with, I think, the weaker half of the keyword, and I think that does kind of maybe constrain him a bit.
Yeah, for all of the reasons you just said, that's why I think I agree with him in B. Like the models that he leans on are not the most durable of models, and so if you can just scalpel those out, you can usually make Cooper 2 a little bit sad. I do really like the smokescreen trigger on his pit trap, and I think that makes him pretty good tech for like those matchups where you might think Cooper 1's a bit more questionable, where people are just gonna charge into the middle of you and try and get in your face. Like just putting them on a neg flip a turn is really good. So I definitely think there's very specific reasons that I will take Cooper 2 over Cooper 1, right? I just don't think that he's the generic take that you're looking for when you declare Cooper. So I agree with him in B as opposed to the original one.
The word of the Pope?
That is the word.
I mean, I kind of feel similarly to how all you guys feel. Well, I guess different than Sam, because Sam is saying flip the positions of the Coops. I'm all in for pit trap shenanigans. I think his loop with them is really cute and pretty cool. But in my mind, he has what I like to refer to as an opposite of the Jedza problem, right? Like Jedza, like everything in her keyword is bomb, right? Like a lot of those models are just good. Whereas he is a keyword filled with fairly weak, vulnerable models. Like, for example, like a sandworm, that's like def 4, right? And like
not his keyword, but yeah.
Yeah, but if you're it's a beast that you would consider taking with him because you can trigger off of the attacks, right? You know what I mean? Because he's doing, theoretically, this master is doing a decent amount of spot out of keyword hiring, right? Like he really likes the damned, he really likes the sandworm, and he's paying 10 points for is the Rex 10 or 9?
He's 10.
Yeah, so he's really expensive, and that's another def 4 model that his primary defense is terrifying 12, which a lot of creative ways around that. So yeah, TLDR, I put him in B. I don't like him as much as Hoop 1 in GG3, but I think he's cute and I think he has play. And I still think he's a viable master.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to move on to Jedza, and I'll do my controversial take on Jedza. I don't know why I said Jedza. Probably because you just said. All right, we're going to move on to Nexus. And yeah. All right, take 3. All right, Nexus is next. I'm going to do my controversial take on Nexus. She's bad after the nerfs. She's decently bad. I'm just going to slam her into C. The main thing she still does now is just create an ungodly amount of eyes and ears, which are very annoying. But them effectively having mindless now makes it so that even using them to try to gum up your opponent doesn't always work. That being said, it is still basically infinite soulstone works in Explorers if people have to kill them. Parasite tokens still are decent at killing models. I think she is... I think C is good for her just because of the whole narrow strength thinking of the tier list, which is, I think it works well on something close like Wedge almost, or where the map kind of funnels people towards a certain area, and you can truly gum up an area using Meredith, the whole keep away, and slowly build up your horde of young kids that sole purpose is go in there and die pretty much, or act as like sponges. And that being said, her overall keyword is still kind of trash. And isn't just that great, but the whole amount of summoned bodies and the totems is just always been carrying that on her back. But I just think it's a little too heavy now.
So I've been ruminating on Nexus since the nerf, and I was originally kind of saying, yeah, C, but I'm now thinking, like, watching more games, and I haven't really got her on the table very much lately. So this is, from mostly a perspective of just sort of seeing how she plays out. But she feels more like a B tier master to me now. First of all, I disagree with the assertion that her keyword is trash. I think the Archivist and Kavatica are both really good. And I think that the other stuff is passable. It's definitely a lot worse, but it's definitely passable. But the big thing with Nexus is, yeah, she summons the Eisners, but also just she has a stat 7 attack that builds in a trigger for injured, which is pretty sweet. Like, we talk about how a lot in this channel about how good injured is. And also she still has the parasite tokens, and it's not quite the same as it was pre-nerf, but if you put it to parasite tokens on something, that thing is dead. It's not maybe immediately dead like it was, but it's pretty dead. And the fact that she can sort of switch between, like, she can summon a bunch of these little eyes and ears, but she can also just whack somebody with a stat 7 that has potentially a min 3 if they've got a parasite token on them already, and hands out injured, and can, give them distracted if they've got a condition on them, and just has basically some good utility to it. And she can do it from a safe distance. I think that's pretty good. And I also think that the nests are absolutely absurd, and you got to kind of price in how strong shambling nests are in this GG to any, consideration, because as we talked about before, you want to keep people off the center line. How about 16 wounds of hard to wound with self-healing that can deploy 6 inches from their deployment zone?
By the way, it's min 2. It is a 1/3/4 attack. It's
but if they already have a parasite, they get 2 damage for getting another one, is what I'm saying.
If they don't have armor or shield.
Sure. But I mean, models with armor still, if you hit them with a min 3, it's still a min 3. They just mitigate part of it.
Yeah, I guess because they mitigate it in a similar way, except for shielded. But yeah, not a lot of models have shielded too, I guess.
So I think I still am on with Haku in this point, if only because I can only think of one strategy where I prefer Nexus 1 to Nexus 2, and that's got to be Covert Ops. But I think she's really good at Covert Ops. I think Nexus 2 is also really good at Covert Ops. I don't know.
I'm not comparing her to Nexus 2. I'm trying to consider her in a vacuum. We'll talk about Nexus
that's
2.
entirely fair, but I don't necessarily think she's particularly good at the other strategies in a vacuum anyways.
I like her with Covert Ops. I like her on guard. I like her on ops.
I don't really think she's good at guard. I don't think that the guard the stash things you need to be doing, which is, controlling that space and being able to relocate enemy models, is something she does particularly well before she has parasite tokens on people. And I don't think you get the parasite tokens in enough of volume or quickly enough to make it so that you're actually going to score more than like 2 points on guard.
Especially because their keyword's so frail. That's my biggest problem with the keyword.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, spell eaters are pretty tanky, but and I still like the keyword in that, as Sam said, when you get a parasite token on a model, it dies, right? But
can you help me
it's got enough weaknesses. It's got low willpower models across the entire table. If you don't take flush with cash on your important pieces, they do just die. I don't know. You have to do a lot of work to make this crew work, and I think the only place where it's worth the squeeze is probably Covert.
What do you take spell eaters for in GG3 now? I've looked at that for a while. I mean, I have them. They're painted. I've literally never fielded them. Help me understand. I don't even know. What are they good at in GG3?
So they're pretty good at, one, just being generically tanky models. Most things in this gaining grounds and this game of Malifaux now require triggers to work. So just not having triggers against them is actually huge. The other thing they do is obviously down to the last drop is just a broken ability, especially in Nexus. Like,
Yeah, down to the last drop's crap.
if we're talking like parasite tokens, it doesn't even matter in comparison to like how good down to the last drop is. For handing out just the guaranteed damage, and then most of the time you're also going to get a really dumb defense tool on a lot of models, especially because the current version of Cadmus is literally just throw 5 eyes and ears at the enemy and just have them be there and be annoying.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. That's what I was looking at. I was like, is down with the last drop, down to the last drop is like what they do, plus you can't get crazy nonsense triggers on them.
Their gun is totally reasonable.
Yeah.
And
It's a
against
perfectly
certain
okay gun.
crews, like building in drain magic is gross.
Oh yeah,
Like Sonya, if she takes thralls, like
yeah.
Yep,
you just strip her
hilarious.
hand. You just strip her hand.
There's a shocking amount of models in this game that have crows built into defense.
yeah, like Professor von Stuck 1, I think, as well. Candy, for example. Yeah, like there's a good number of relevant models.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess I haven't really played Nexus 1 in GG3, to be totally honest. Every single time I brought Nexus, it's been the triplets. So
Even in triplets,
Gross.
Nexus, I legitimately think spell eaters are at least worthy to think about.
yeah, I should try them out. I'll try them out and see if they're see if I like them or not.
Also, they're the coolest model aesthetically in the keywords, so there's that.
They are really cool looking.
Bravo.
Let's move on before this gets a little more uncomfortable.
Okay.
All right.
Wait. My rating, having literally never played her ever, as in GG3, is that I would like to keep her in C. That is my rating.
All right, nice. I know that's going to tilt some people hard, so you're welcome.
Yeah, no problems.
Very simple thing to do is just going to be Windmill Slam Nexus 2 into S tier. Undeniably, this model is amazing. The crew is amazing. Parasite tokens being able to remove 2 off of a stat on any flip ever that model makes is kind of disgusting. And it leads to a decent snowball effect. And that's pretty much good everywhere. Just the sheer amount of AP, sheer amount of value, sheer amount of stats. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, I don't know that the Nexus kids are the best master in the game, but I don't know that they're not the best master in the game. They're just absurd, and everything they do is nuts. Like once they start hitting you, they keep hitting you. Once you start missing them, you keep missing them. It just snowballs like crazy. They make nests significant from 12 inches away, which is just absolutely nuts in this GG. Like nests being significant in this GG is backbreaking on so many different strats. There's nothing they're bad at. Like they're incredible. Their gun is stupid. Oh, they're so good. I love playing these kids.
Built-in crows for spell eaters.
Sure.
I'm just saying, mirror matchup. You bring spell eaters in
that's
the mirror
that's
matchup.
the tech. No, that is the tech.
If y'all are allowed to say Yanlo 2 is the best master in the game, I'm allowed to say Next Kids is the best master of the game.
Masters.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you show up and you show up with 37 wounds, 16 of which are hard to wound, and the other 21 can use soul stones. Just for showing up, no points.
So again, if you guys are allowed to say Yanlo's the best, I'm gonna say Nexus 2 is the best.
Yeah, I don't think there's that much. I mean, I'm sure, Doug, you have a controversial opinion on the Nexus kids.
Like, they're dope. They're actually insane. And I was screaming at you when they were released while Nexus 1 was still good. And I was like, bro, look at all these chickens being all these kids with all these little psychic weapons and missiles. And you're like, I don't know, man.
I didn't say they were bad. I just didn't think that I wasn't as excited about them.
Oh, dude, they're the bee's knees.
I said they were good. I just wasn't as excited about them, and I should have been.
My controversial opinion is not controversial at all. I just think this is probably the best keyword or the best master in the game right now.
You don't have to be excited about them. It's not like they're flashy. They're just like generically value town.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, you just get 9 AP.
The way that I love to play tabletop and strategy games in general, and Sam sees this when we play a lot because Sam and I play each other a shit ton, is I will always opt to take more active AP on board, more models, more model count, than leaving myself with more upgrades or more soul stones, because I like the tactical flexibility of having a presence of an onboard state. And to me, the Nexus kids with friends or with friend. So if you bring like a another master, if you're playing in a double master format, it's just the absolute pinnacle of having access to a very, very large amount of AP that you're effectively getting for free. And it's not really throwaway AP anymore. The biggest thing that Sam touched on a little bit already is like nests are already good. And now you can tag them and have them complete objectives for you, which is like one of the better abilities on Nekoma 2. And that's just like in the spark notes of the many, many things that Nexus 2 is amazing at, basically. That's kind of my opinion on them. They're just the bee's knees. They're great. The bee's knees.
Yeah, if you don't have good range, this crew is so hard to put down to ever try to fight them in melee. But
yeah, I mean, once they hit you once with a stat 6 on willpower, it's like good luck ever hitting them.
So one of the things that I do think is interesting, and I wanted to bring up, I actually wrote this down in my pre-call notes, and it was to ask Pope about how much he likes to Breath of Fire cheeky Cadmus 2 players that have packed too tightly together during a game, because I'm sure that's come up before.
You know what? It actually hasn't, because I don't usually play on low 2 into Explorers, but you know, it would be really neat. I would not mind doing that.
Yeah, I lost a game to Kieran, who's one of the other guys, one of our locals. He's a really good player. He was on Yonlo 2 and I was on Cadmus 2. And in one activation, I left myself too clumped up a little bit on turn 2. And in one activation, he Breath of Fired the shit out of me and just did so much damage because I had Will of the Manying, like kind of the party train, you know, the Will of Many party train.
Yeah.
As one does. And I just got a little too cheeky with it. And he Breath of Fired the hell out of me. And I just like basically lost the game on the spot there. So just if you're playing Cadmus 2, be aware of shockwave effects because you do have a lot of models and you have a lot of proximity or proc movement for Will of the Many, but don't leave yourself vulnerable to spamming shockwaves or blasts because that'll fuck you up still, basically.
Yeah, I'm just glad I'm playing Witness now, which kind of hard shuts off this crew a little bit, which is nice.
All right, let's move on.
All right, Ivan, my other next controversial take. Master I may have played the most and will probably never really play again. I'm just going to put him in C. I think there's a couple lists where I would want to toy with in order to see if it's at all viable. Mostly just because he picked up Jin, which is an amazing model. The downside is the rest of his keyword still sucks, and they nerfed the versatiles in the faction. Or they even really just nerfed most of the models that you would hire out of keyword into this keyword. So, yeah, it's kind of unfortunate how hard they hit him with the nerf bat. They removed the damage when you summon, the range for turning scheme markers into shadow markers and vice versa. And the fact that he can't be healed or target himself with encroaching shadows anymore is really just all those together has really just made him feel very oof. There are going to be situations where you have a good concealing map, wagons in particular, where you have the moving concealing terrain, where those nerfs won't be as relevant because you no longer need to worry too much about pushing yourself 6 ignoring terrain. But will always be pretty relevant now that Brocken is basically a dead model and you're living off Devas. But that being said, Devas are still good. The rest of his stuff is still, I mean, Gibson gives fast focus to things, which is good, and has tools. The only model in the X's that has it, I think.
Yes.
And yeah, it's just it got hit too hard. Very specifically, he's going to work, I think, probably in Carve on a map that's very favorable to him. If all those conditions come true, he'll still be playable. The downside is I think the way you play him just works better in any other master because you're basically going to be hiring a lot of models from different keywords.
Yeah, I mean, he got Jin Bakura, but like so did the rest of the faction. Like we all got Jin Bakura. Yeah, I really wanted to like Ivan. I have this cool idea for how I'm going to paint his crew in just like a grayscale, and I just haven't done it because I'm like kind of demoralized looking at him. It's just the problem is that when you get past Gibson, who is really good, none of the models in his crew, like Davis, are fine, but none of the models in his crew are models that I'm like super excited to hire. And the Davis, like, which I maybe even would hire, I'm just going to be summoning. So kind of don't even want to hire them. So it's kind of like, what do you do? What do you hire? And it turns out you just hire models that other masters can hire for more cheaply. And Ivan can kind of bounce around super soloing, but his resource draw is a lot more significant than it used to be to do that. And he's a lot more vulnerable than he used to be. So I don't know. I just think that it's a tough sell. It's uphill. I think I would put him in C as well. So that's my wording. Just sad because I like him.
Yeah, C sounds right. I don't even think he's particularly good at the things he's good at right now. Mostly, as we spoke, like none of his keyword really accomplishes much, so you take the out of keyword stuff. I was giving Longtin shit earlier today because he said that Ivan had a bad keyword, and I'm like, but what about Jin, Gibson, and Nocturne, the 3 models you hire in every crew? And he's like, well, yeah, but aside from those, so I do.
And they're not even good in his crew though. I mean, that's the problem. They're better in other crews.
Gibson is better in his crew.
And not really, not anymore. He was good because he could heal Ivan, and now you're not. I mean, you're not healing Brock in because they're not summoning them. Deva are going to be a mile away from him. The only thing he really does is has a cool little lantern and can burn out somebody turn 1.
Okay, I mean, I was thinking Nocturnes, but yeah, I guess the fact that he can burn out, it's just, yeah, I like using him as a surge bot, but I guess I have to agree with you.
Is that the word of the Pope?
Yeah, that's the word. I have not much to say here.
Ivan, I'm not mad at you, buddy. I'm just disappointed in you. I feel like you had a lot more potential, my friend. And if you apply yourself and you wait for maybe a slight buff, maybe you'll get there. But for now, I think you're going to hang out in the C tier, my friend. Probably in the very, very back. Although I do think, Haku, you brought this up on one of your on your OG ES tier list. I think he makes a really good second master still. I mean, like maybe not really good, but fine. Like you can put him with the Cadmus kids. He's probably fucking pretty good there, you know?
It's still Deva are just amazing. So if you're using him as like a summon bot, he's still really good. And Cadmus kids make it so that it's still just depressing to see the whole board filled up with other models.
Yeah, exactly.
And gummed up. And they love it when the board's more gummed up. And Ivan does that great. But
yeah, it's also really easy to summon once the target has a parasite token.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think, you know, if you're taking him, I think he's sneaky good as a second master out of Cadmus 2. And especially if you're playing like a bands format and somebody looks at you and soul reads you and is like, Wastrel, you will have no McCabe this game. And then you're like, all right, fine. Here's an Ivan. Summoning Devas. Let's go, you know? Do you guys think Devas are just straight up pound for pound better models than Brockens now, regardless of point cost? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think you ever summon a Brocken even when you can anymore.
No, but I'm
want
saying
to turn off healing.
Yeah. When the healing aura is relevant, it's super relevant. But when it's not, you don't bother.
Even I'm not even sure like I would include super relevant because let's say like you deny 2 healing but you dealt 2 damage just because you summoned attack with Deva. Like I don't know.
But there's a lot of times when you're denying healing like in a demise.
Yeah, I was about to say
a lot.
I was about to say.
Yeah, when you're basically anti-demising, it's really nice.
Yeah. And
especially so they serve a situation, but almost always Deva.
So yeah, they've become a tech pick in a scenario where you want to either turn off healing or demise auras effectively. Other than that, you're just Devaing all day or a day.
Yep.
I mean, sometimes you'll also have like the irreducible that's relevant against the armor 1 or shielded 1 type folks. But yeah.
Yeah, I buy that take.
The downside is, as I've noticed against those, they're almost never 6 willpower models.
Yeah, and you'd have to at that point you're like straight up paying cash money soul stones for those bad boys, which is like a pretty feel bad.
Oh, you can never hire Brock.
You know what it is? It's into Mayfang because survivors are willpower 6.
There you go. If they
survivors
hire
are willpower 6.
Yeah, dude, those little dudes kick ass. That's what I was saying before.
Another reason not to hire them.
I mean, I do love survivors, but yeah, I wouldn't hire them into Ivan.
Yeah, fair enough.
Kang's willpower 6.
All right,
another model you don't hire.
Yeah, I'd say he's low C tier. I put him back behind Nexus 1. If you're using him as a second master in Cadmus 2, that's probably his primary use case in my mind right now.
I think it's his only one, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, onwards to his alternative form, which is so much worse. So the problem with this model is everything he wants to do is broken by the rules of the game. And he really just needs those hotfix, and he might be interesting, but still probably not that good. For those who are uninitiative or uninformed about this, it is 2 of his upgrades. One of them summons a Deva, who gets to take a once per activation attack, which you can't use outside of an activation, which is when they're summoned, as well as his other upgrade, which allows you to obey a model. You can't obey a model to charge, because that is also a once per activation, which you can't do outside of activations of models. And since this is all being done in the start phase, he's just sad. It's just sad that it doesn't work that way, because he technically does some interesting movement stuff with Distracted, and Distracted being pretty strong right now ever since the focus nerf cap. And it feels like there's almost something there. That being said, this GG3 has had a lot less, I think, of spreading out of models, and it's been decently more clumpy. Even when you want to go wide with models, you still stay tentatively together in a big bubble, and so therefore his movement effects don't matter too much. And I really do think this model is like, why would I ever hire him? Legitimately, why?
I don't know. I'm not going to put up a fight here. I think he belongs in D. I think that people who you make maybe a little too much of the fact that his secret plans don't focus in the start phase. Like, that's marginal. I think that is a problem, and it does like negatively impact some of the stuff you'd want to do. But it's somewhat marginal. But I think the bigger problem is that even if those worked, like, just a lot of the text on this card is super unimpressive. I'm like curious about stuff like displacing shot, but just I'm looking at this guy, right? And he has 3 attack actions, all of which have range 8, 2 of which are projectiles. I mean, they technically ignore concealment, and it's very hard to engage him such that, so that he can't make the shot, but it's not impossible. And it's just when he just has so much like hoops he has to jump through to do what feels like very weak and basic things. And I'm just imagining playing him and kind of doing all your stuff and staggering enemy models and handing out Distracted. And then you finish his activation. You're kind of like, so what? Like, well, you didn't really change the board state. So yeah, he just seems very, very unimpressive to me.
I think the only reason I don't like him a bit more comes down to, one, I think the main thing that he does, which is just dropping scheme markers next to enemy models, got a little bit worse in this GG. And 2, that he doesn't really have like a good model to funnel all of your cards into. That used to be Ivan, right? But now Ivan 2, he's got some pretty efficient attacks with the fact that you get to take a bunch of just flips at positives on your stat 5 versus movement, which is usually like a neutral attack, right? But you get a bunch of positives, so it's neat. But the fact that you don't have someone to just then send the good cards to once he's done kind of makes it feel a little worse. I think there's ways you could make this like a good master. I just don't think they exist right now. For that reason, I don't really think I agree with D. Like, the Presto Changeo effect's probably pretty good in this GG, right? I think I could easily put him C. I think I like him about as much as the original Ivan. I don't like him that much worse.
You're talking about displacing shot?
Yeah.
My other problem with displacing shot is there's no reason that attack should have a TN. Let alone
it's a high TN.
Let alone a TN 14. Like, there's no reason that attack should have a TN.
My favorite thing about this is, like, you said it's like not that hard to engage him, and that's just the truth. Like, I've played like 3 games against this, and most of the time I just basically kill Mordrake, engage this guy, and he literally can't do anything. Then it's just depressing for him. It's not
that easy to kill Mordrake.
In modern GG, I actually think it is that easy to kill Mordrake.
Well, the point is he teleports over and he heals.
I'm just saying, like, it's that easy to kill Mordrake in modern GG. Admittedly, most of the time I had Archivists to do it, but I mean, Cooper, Archivist, Brocken, it's a funny way to do it. Like, if there's enough ways for most factions to just kill Mordrake nowadays, especially in top tier.
Brockens don't do it.
Oh, right, because they do. You just need the Brocken next to Ivan, which is where you have the Brocken, because that's where you summon them.
Sure, fair enough.
But yeah, it's really not that hard to keep this guy engaged and kind of doing nothing on his whole activation, which is it's just kind of funny and depressing.
This guy's trash basket, like Molly 2 trash basket level, like straight up trash.
You had that one in the chamber.
Yeah, he's trash basket, dude. He's bad. I used him as a proxy for Max 2 until her model came out. That was his primary use for me. Like, that's what I did. So yeah, that's my opinion. Trash. Like like negative E- tier, if possible.
Oh yeah, he's a 40 mil. That's weird.
Yes,
Because he's brought a big machine with him.
Okay, makes sense. Like a big
so
floating
weird.
wall.
Also, the other thing I just have to get off my chest, the internet needs to know this. Do you remember the scene from Marvel Avengers where Tony Stark is fighting and he has that gauntlet that comes out of his hand? Literally, that looks like exactly what Ivan 2 is wearing. Where the Winter Soldier tries to shoot a bullet and Tony Stark like catches it with a gauntlet that like comes out of his hand in a train station fight scene. It's also where they fight Spider-Man for the first time.
I'm gonna take your word on that one.
I mean, dude, your depth of knowledge in Dragon Ball Z, Marvel Avengers, and personal hygiene are all grossly underscaled, my friend.
I know about personal hygiene. I've heard of it.
Fair enough. I mean, I disagree, but fair enough.
All
All
right,
right.
let's move on.
We're gonna move on to Maxine. Maxine 1. She's in an interesting spot. The keyword is arguably probably the best keyword. I know you were kind of leaning towards Cooper's, but I think EVS is actually just kind of disgusting how good their models are. One of the few factions in Explorers that can legitimately just be all in keyword. I think for Maxine 1 for me, she's a solid B. I'm never terribly impressed by what her card itself does, the back side of it, but the front side of it, just drawing cards, is really good in every GG ever, in every game ever. Drawing cards is good, and Maxine can draw cards. And yeah, she's good. That's about it. Keyword good. Everything is solid. She just makes the keyword better. And just amplifies their strengths, and it's good.
I mean, I'm looking at sort of how we rate these letters, right? And I think that it's hard for me to argue against her in A, just because the whole thing about her is that she doesn't have specific strengths. She's good at everything. She's super flexible. She draws a million cards. I've been sort of like tooling around with her more lately, and it feels like the best thing she does is Clockwork Revolvers. Her Clockwork Revolver is like super good because Age of Inspiration is a really good trigger. Age of Inspiration often just means draw severe. So like, you know, she's got Captain of the Superior, so she draws a bunch of cards through that. But she can just, if you're smart about how you set your polymath suit, you can like draw multiple severes in her activation with Age of Inspiration. It's a pretty reasonable attack too. It's, you know, stat 6, 2, 3, 5 at range. And she just like hands out fast focused. She can stun enemy models without flipping a card on them because of One for All. She just has a lot of like really cool stuff to recommend her, and it feels like it's hard for me to envision a pool where you wouldn't want her just because she's so adaptable. That's kind of the strength of her, right? She's got mobility, she's got card draw, she's got damage. She's not great at anything except for card draw, but she's good at lots of things. And I think that good at lots of things is really strong in the hands of a player who knows what their crew can do. So I'd put her in A. I might even put her above Cooper in A, just because I think she's got that flexibility.
So I don't know about above Cooper and A, but having played against Andre's Maxine recently, I think I kind of learned to appreciate those points a bit more than I initially did when like I was first looking over the card. Like that Clockwork Revolver is really bonkers. And like it doesn't look like it, right? Because it's a stat 6, 2, 3, 5, ignores nothing, you're like Snoresville, right? But the fact that you also have it on a 3 AP model with Leap starts to make it a bit more interesting. Especially since like the lowest you'll ever shoot with it is cheating a 9, right? Like you'll never do worse than that on one of your attacks with her, unless you're just not cheating for some weird reason.
Yeah, and sometimes your opponent randomly flips a 13 that's actually a 1.
Yeah, and that's just real nice.
Like it makes her attacks really strong.
So no, I either the highest of B or probably like somewhere in A. I think at this point in time for me. I used to be a non-believer, and I'm still not like I don't ever think she's like the best choice, right? And that's why I struggle to put her above Cooper. I just feel like she does a lot of different things, and if you're looking for a master to just be like, I will play one master in Explorers, I think she's a decent contender.
Plus, you got access to her
special.
title. You've got access to her
Carnage
title.
special. Yeah,
The word of the Pope.
that's the word of the Pope.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what all you guys are saying. I mean, so Andre Demings was playing mostly Max 1 at Gen Con this year,
Yep.
wasn't he?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
I
Still
thought he was.
probably will be.
Yeah, I thought he was spamming Max 2 like I've been doing.
Nope.
But no, this dude is straight up just big braining Max 1 at the top tables. So, you know, good for him. That guy's a solid player. I agree with what you guys are saying. I'm not going to repeat everything verbatim, but basically I would put her kind of in exactly the same spot as Cooper 2. I'm not really sure in my mind which I think is better, but I think because she's more of a control master and has a higher ceiling in my mind than Cooper 2, then probably she is the very front of B. That's kind of where I guess I would put her.
Yeah,
if I'm thinking about it.
Just to kind of like solidify something I mentioned earlier, like I've been playing a lot of Max 2 lately, and Max 2's got Cascading Magic on her attack, which often means draw a severe because you flip 5 and just draw 1, and flipping 5 out of your deck, especially when you've stacked your deck a little bit, is likely to be at least 1 severe. And just the difference in the difference between draw a card and draw a severe is really significant. Really significant. And Max 1 also has something very similar with Age of Inspiration. And it's a lot stronger than I even thought it was going to be. So that's just my thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think top of B, bottom of A. It's a tricky one to pick which one I would put it in. I at the moment I'm still a little down on it, so I think at the end of it I'm going to keep it in B, and that's partially because I'm going to go on to Maxine 2, and I think it's most of the time just the better option. And I'm debating whether or not I want to put it in an S. I'm going to, because I actually think this thing is disgustingly good. I love Maxine.
No longer a person.
What? Yeah.
This thing, no longer a person.
She got absorbed by tentacles. I really like this model. The amount of healing and how hard it is to put down this crew is honestly just disgusting. While she doesn't have the same card draw engine that EVS 1 does, she still, as you were saying, Cascade Magic draws cards really well. And the best part is you're stacking injured while doing it. And you're also, you're having massive tentacles built in if you're on the center line, which is one of the best triggers
into her
printed.
melee attack.
Oh, right. Not on the melee attack. That's right.
You can't build in massive tentacles,
delusional.
unfortunately. You could only build in her other excellent triggers.
Yeah. That's right. I forgot about that.
You say unfortunately, I say thankfully.
Yeah,
right, that would be incredibly stupid.
Massive tentacle.
Max 2 needs a buff. She's like not strong enough.
So the main reason I like it is this crew is really good at sticking together. They're not susceptible to range, which I think is the current big threat. Obviously, Maxine 1 is a little bit like this as well because they have the same models, but particularly her totem giving concealing to everybody, and then Harada being the one that gives you can't have plus flips.
Yep, that's
are negated. And then the ability to move that as a crew using the bonus action forward is pretty good. You get a nice little 4-inch ish, sometimes more, sometimes a little less, depending on where you are in the shockwave circle. While removing some conditions is really disgusting.
Yeah.
5 plus a base, basically, is the max distance you get. And then calculate possibilities has always they've been printing this on a lot of things, and it's just good.
There are literally 2 models in the game that have it.
Yeah, well, they instead of possibilities, it's configure the lore, which is basically the similar thing, except for obviously it's it's the enemy's fate deck. Both of them is slightly different, but also it's a really disgustingly good ability. The whole discard card against stunned is just good. Everything, the whole model's good. The keyword's good. And most of the time, this model comes out on top of Maxine 1. To such a degree, I think it's actually disgusting how good she is.
Yeah, I mean, I think of all the masters that we've rated S over the course of doing this, Maxine's the one that I would be the closest to shunting into A. And largely that's because the thing that she does is like super predictable. It's totally telegraphed, but it kind of doesn't matter. Like if you know the sort of exact like weight and speed and like velocity of the baseball that's flying at your face, that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. And it's super hard to stop Max given that she has toss in her crew. She has probably the best toss model in the game in her keyword. given that, and given that she has an AoE leap as a bonus action, it's almost impossible to stop her from just like getting onto one of your models and pounding it into the ground like a fence post and drawing a bunch of cards. So you can know that it's coming and you can make plans for it, but it's hard to not have it happen to you. So I think I'm comfortable with S. And she also just has some of the goofiest rules interactions. Like her with Jedza as a second master is like really funny, really, really funny interaction. She just has great triggers. The fact that she can be like stat 8 on her like relevant bonus action and split across worlds, which sometimes really matters, is really strong. But mostly it's just Breach Burnt is an ability that like the delta between how good Breach Burnt looks and how good it actually plays is one of the biggest in the game. I remember the very first game I was playing against Doug, he knocked Harada down pretty low, but he had to leave him alive for bait and switch. And I did a calculate the possibilities and I flipped 7 tomes. I flipped 7 tomes on the calculate the possibilities.
I was so pissed.
He was mad.
So I was like, I remember being like, you did what to whose dog? For how many cookies? And you were like, for 7 cookies. And now he's fully healed. And I was like, dude, not cool. Like,
yeah, she's great. I love Max. I'm gonna be playing a lot of Max at Nova probably.
So yeah, I actually decided to talk to Andre about why he doesn't like Max too, and he basically said that she doesn't draw quite so many cards, and that she doesn't play as flexibly as Max 1 did, which it sounds like you agree with, Sam.
Oh, that's definitely true.
And like, I agree. I think she's probably the closest to A, just because it also feels like her crew has like some definitive weak spots on it. But I agree that yeah, she's got probably the best keyword in EV in the Explorer Society, and yeah, good triggers are good. It's hard to find something that's too like. It's hard to find something bad to say about this model beyond the fact that it has 9 wounds and relies on demise to not die. But like, I don't know, that totem
and the sheer
is
amount of
so
healing.
dumb.
Yeah, her totem is super good.
I hate that totem so much. And
Her
also,
concealment
bouncing
aura
bombs
is
is just like ridiculously better this GG than it was in the previous GGs. Like,
Yeah.
goddamn bouncing bombs.
And he's significant. It's awesome. It means that he's really good at martyrs.
yeah, he's excellent. He's a good boy. And people will gleefully kill that model. So he makes an amazing hidden martyr. I very often have him as my hidden martyr.
I think
You
there's
can
a lot
have
of
your filthy points. I will kill him.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how other people feel as well. Like, this dude is dying. I don't give a care if he's a hidden martyr. He gonna die.
there's a lot of just like really interesting tech in EVS. Like Bo is kind of techy, and Harada's kind of techy, and machinists are super techy. Like there's a lot of models that I'm not sad to hire, but like sometimes just randomly are amazing.
Well, the machinist anti-aura thing is insane. Like the Eye of the Storm ability on the machinist, holy shnikes, is that wild? Because it, quite frankly, what it does for me and the way that I consider it is, if I'm going up against like a Yonlo 2, which is like super prevalent in the meta, and it's like, oh, they have anti-demise auras all over the crew. Like you can staple an anti-demise aura onto something. Having something be able to ignore that anti-demise aura is really, really powerful. And because the way it tags, I can have the machinist run up a little bit behind and tag my friendly without getting him like into the, I don't have to connect it to the model that's putting out the anti-demise aura. I just have to have that 3-inch within the model I want to save. Makes it a lot easier.
Did you know Extended Reach is an aura ability? I did not until my latest game.
Oh no!
Oh yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man, that's messed up.
Oh no.
You know
Try and
what's
position
yeah.
Manos to stop someone from charging, and getting the heals off with the bonk. Nope, that's never gonna work.
You know what's a really interesting interaction I want to hear? I want to know, how does the machinist's anti-aura interact with Shamus's anti-aura Shamus 2?
I think the conventional answer is active player.
Yeah, that's probably correct. Like the active player's effects activate first. So I think that's probably it.
Active player always activates first or stacks first or whatever. If you want to go ask Vassal World Series ruling committee, maybe they'll tell you that when those two interact, they make 35 corpse tokens. You know?
Can't rule
Hey
it out.
now. Hey now.
All right.
All right, onwards to base. All about that base. About that base. No trouble. I love base in this GG, legitimately. I think the trap span list is better at these strats because movement matters a lot in these strats.
Explain to folks what the trap spam list is and how it differs from the normal list, because whenever you and I talk about Bass, or I talk with Sam, it's literally 2 conversation tracks. So I think that's a really good thing to clarify up front for some folks.
Oh, I put the wrong base up first. This base is the slightly worse base. My bad. I got too hyped. The trap list is you can hire 8 clockwork traps and 2 pathfinders to make more traps. Sometimes you'll only hire 6 clockwork traps and just make the first 2 traps, but that's all game dependent. Largely, the whole principle is you have these armor 2, wound 2 models that have a stat 5 versus move at a 1-inch range with pretty good triggers. Puncture and You're Coming With Me. And these models are just cancer to deal with. They're horribly, horribly cancerous. They have creep along, and they can just do some really nutty things at the beginning of the turn. You basically just use them to keep your whole enemy inside of the deployment zone and to never be allowed to leave. And you use your guns / other models to just go score points while they're stuck dealing with all these insignificant models they don't get any value for killing that they have to kill.
If you've been trap spammed, you may be entitled to compensation.
And also, Flush with Cash is absolute bananaramas in that list.
Yes, and since we're in Explorers, you get Flush with Cash, so every clockwork trap that dies is now a soulstone.
Yeah, so like extra nonsense.
Yeah, you get a 50% discount on them, basically.
Yeah.
It's a rebate. It's a mail-in rebate.
Who do you look to put that on most games, you think? The Flush with Cash. It's important because you want that model relatively upboard, but you also don't want it to get murked, obviously.
You put it
like
on
Reichert.
Yeah, you
Reichert,
either put
right?
it. What?
Reichert, right? Jonathan Reichert?
Yeah. Yes.
Trenchcoat boy.
Ever since he got buffed, he's pretty nice. And then plus just a simple fact that you can put it on the master himself. That doesn't matter as much for base 1, but base 2 actually ends up hanging out at the front line a decent amount. So you can put it on him.
Yeah, and you basically put it on Jonathan, and then you have him ride with me up the field from like a Rough Rider or something, I would assume, basically.
Yeah, or honestly, you just you have Bring It On with the totem. So the totem just walks forward, brings it on, and it's really good.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because you just have Bernadette do it, and you just don't even have to spend any real.
And since you're going to have a decent amount of home on the range people, you're going to have like 5 of them. You end up you could be on you can be covering them in the aura turn 1 pretty easily.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, okay. Evaluating Bass, I think obviously it's hard to evaluate him outside of like that silly list. I do think there's a reasonable list that just takes the good frontier models, of which there definitely are some. Like Reichert's good. I like the Sandworm more than some people do. Because, yeah, it's got crap defense, but it just buries. Like, you hit it once, it reduces the damage, and then it's gone. So it's not like you can just sit there and pound it into scrap. Although, if they can cancel triggers, yeah, it's just going to freaking die immediately. So, you know, that's questionable. But I think that with Bass 1, a big thing is just, like, do you play on Vassal a lot? Because if you play on Vassal a lot, then Caught in Quicksand is really insane. And if you don't, then, like, Caught in Quicksand's a lot less impressive because non-Vassal tables tend to have terrain that looks different, right? But like if you're playing on a table with a bunch of terrain that makes Caught in Quicksand good, then like, holy hell, it is a 12-inch range non-projectile stat 7 against move that like hands out injured automatically and also displaces enemies and also just does other stuff that's really good. Like, yeah, that ability is insane. So I guess when you defend, like my big thing with Bass, first of all, yeah, fine. B is fine. I have no problem with him in B. I think both Basses are pretty similar to each other. And when you declare one over the other is basically, are you going to be able to maximize Caught in Quicksand? That's kind of my heuristic on it, but I'd be interested to hear your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, Caught in Quicksand's really good. I think it's hard to deny that. Like when it works, it works. I think the shotgun probably gets a bit more flack than it deserves. Like it's a perfectly reasonable shotgun with an injured trigger on it. Like when the blasts go off, they go off and you kill things. But
that's true. Severe injury is models damaged. It's not the target.
And when you have the big piece of concealing to just kind of stick in, it's really difficult to kill Bass. Like it's almost not even worth trying with the Crow Trigger to just say your activation's over, like he's cosplaying as Zareta or something. So
Yeah, except it's an after resolving. It's even better than Zareta's.
yeah, so it's pretty good. Is Zareta not also after resolving?
Zareta has to take damage, and it has to be a melee attack as well.
Gotcha. Wait, does Basses not have to be a melee attack?
No, but it still gets the push.
You still get the 2-inch push without it being melee.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but I do think it's better than Zareta's because you can stone the damage and be like, psych, your activation still ends. Bye.
Yep. Okay. Gotcha. But yeah, so like I think he has some uses to the point where it's not like you're never taking him over the other title. But yeah, I'm a fan, generally speaking. Just like his regular list, I think is also pretty decent when you're taking him and you're just deploying a bunch of beaters in your opponent's face turn 1. Like lots of people will say that home on the range is bad because you deploy closer to your enemies and die, but I don't necessarily think that's true with this particular version of Bass. If you're just taking like Reichardt, Sandworm, Bass, and then like maybe a couple beaters.
Is that the word of the Pope?
That's the word.
All right. Yeah, I mean, my feeling on Bass is I can't remember which one of you fine gentlemen said it, but I really do think that was a poignant point. Was in my mind, him and the other variant are pretty similar to one another. You're just basically trying to proactively identify the terrain state on the board and whether or not the particular abilities of one are going to be good. I think of him as like a master that you lean into when the board makes sense for him. And so I think that was Sam that said that, but I super agree with that point. So basically, when he's good, he's going to be really, really good. But when he's not good, you then basically flip and then just take his secondary title. I think it's Badlands Sheriff. I think that's what it's called. So because of that, I guess, he has ultra specific strengths in my mind. And he's he would either be the very, very top of C if we're calling him the king of narrow strengths, or probably where he's at in like the middle tier of B for specific strengths.
I don't think his strengths are that narrow. Like handing out injured in AoE, having just like that super strong caught in quicksand. I think B seems fine.
I think he's good. I don't think he's a bad master. I just think that the most powerful thing that he does is dependent on the terrain at the end of the day, in my mind, in the board setup. The most powerful thing he does. And that's not to say he doesn't do other things that are good or effective, but like his big showstopper in my mind is the thing that you want to sync up with how the terrain on the board works.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're talking about his title.
Yeah, so the title just got better for the trap list. That's why I initially put it in an A. Pretty much the whole dust clouds don't get removed is massive for, keeping them trapped in their death hold with all the traps. Because the traps keep the dust cloud markers around. And you're not getting screwed by them like you do in base 1, because you're the only one who ignores concealment in that crew. Whereas now they finally print it so that you don't just screw your crew over with concealment train being placed down pretty much. Wanted poster is just a really good ability that they also put on, because like a lot of the ways you would leave the enclosed trap area is with like abilities that leap or other good TNs. And it gets so much more cancerous being stuck in there. Because basically base 2 Badlands just runs forward, twisting tornadoes, gets a bunch of cloud markers in there, make them take a bunch of move duels or take 2 damage. And remember, your traps auto stagger if they hit, so it's good chance you staggered a bunch of people. So you're looking at like almost a TN 15 duel for these people. And yeah, it's just really, really strong. And moves the traps around at the same exact time. So much movement effects, so much ability to just gum up somebody. And then worst comes to worst, you start hitting people with your auto attack that does some other really disgusting things, like stunning people.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love this Bass. Like, I really like him. I love the synergy on his card between the trigger on his challenge that staggers people, and then once they're staggered, you can just absolutely like ruin someone's day with the shackles. Like, if you it's not every model, but like there are a lot of models in this game where if they're slow and stunned, it's almost like they skip their activation. And he also, I think you're right, he works a lot better with the traps. Twisting Tornado pushes all your traps around. That's pretty sweet, and it puts the cloud down. He's got a sort of incidental condition and marker removal. Sometimes your opponent's stacking focus and you're like, psych, bye. All your focus is gone. And wanted posters sometimes doesn't matter and sometimes hugely does. And it's always nice to have. And I don't think he pays for it by being weaker elsewhere. So yeah, he just seems like a really nice, durable all-rounder with good strengths. And I can't really think about I can't see an environment like a pool that's particularly bad for him. There are matchups that are bad for him, but there's no pools that are. So A is totally fine with me.
Yeah, the other thing that I think I just want to mention real quick before we're done here is that his Peacebringer is just really good. It ignores a bunch of rules and then has like good triggers.
Well, there's one
Probably
trigger, right?
Sure.
Yeah. You gain shielded. That's a good trigger. Gaining shielded is sweet.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
also
The
want to
ignore
point
demise
out-
part of it is part of the gun.
It doesn't
No,
ignore
it doesn't
demise.
ignore
It
demise,
only ignores
just
hard to kill.
Hard to kill. That was it.
It
The,
only ignores hard to kill and concealing. Those are the only two things.
It ignores a lot of shit though.
Yeah. The last thing I want to point out, because you did bring up challenge, it is important to note that you can challenge your own models just to hand out the staggered and a pulse, which is really good.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you're attacking at a stat 8 on an attack that auto stuns or slows. It's super good.
Is that the word of the Pope?
That's the word of, I guess, all of us.
No. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you guys. I think he's A tier, probably middle A somewhere in my mind. Basically, like you probably play him whenever the terrain board doesn't tell you to play number 1 in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So
Makes sense.
yeah.
Honestly, I'll just say I actually do think you play him a lot more, even when the terrain board has to be particularly disgusting, I think, to switch to 1, at least for the trap list. If you're playing normal base, then sure.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm gonna try to get some games in with the trap list, but the problem is that it's kind of BM, for like a normal game of Malifaux. So I don't want to like just take it against a rando and have them be really pissed at me at my LGS. So I'm gonna play it against my buddy Rich, and he'll be salty, but like
He won't be your buddy for long.
Nah. Rich and I have a Hawaiian shirt bond. It's stronger than blood. He literally only wears Hawaiian shirts to the LGS, so he's like, literally we're like blood brothers basically.
That's how it works.
That is how it works. All right, we're gonna move on to Jedza. Jedza 1. God, I always want this master to be good, but it never feels great. As you pointed out, her current best use is if you're able to hire her second master in Maxine 2. Good God, is it really dumb? But by herself, I'm gonna put her. The grouping is good now. Do I put her in B? I'm not really sure. I think she's low B, high C for me at the moment. I'm going to be controversial and put her in C. I'm really not a fan of what this master does in her default version of the crew. I think there's a lot of movement effects, a lot of anti-healing effects currently. And if you're not getting active value out of Fragility of Life, her whole keyword just kind of falls apart because it's so frail. But she does have good models in the keyword that do useful things. It's just, they all just die pretty quickly. That being said, the reason I'm not the biggest fan of Jedza 1, besides the fact that she keeps the crew alive, is mostly she just draws cards and heals. When she heals an enemy model to just deal 4, that's really good. It normally costs, you're almost always having to cheat a Severe for it and a Ram, but, it's just 4 damage. That's a tactical action. It's never bad. So I think there's definitely possibility she's higher rated than I'm giving her, but those are the reasons why I think currently she just doesn't. I've never seen her really perform. I think every time I want her to be good, it's just ugh.
I like her in B. I think I've said this before. I think that the big weakness that she has is that there's a lot of crews that punish bubbling now, and you really have no choice but to bubble with her. But I think bubbling is stronger in GG3. Like there's just more times when you'll do that. I think that a lot of the time she can set up part of the board to just be like a zone your opponent really doesn't want to go into. And with fragility of life and inevitability of death. It's just there's a lot like she can punish you for trying to occupy the same space as her. And that's something, and I think this GG kind of forces you to occupy the same space as your opponent. She does have, I think, really strong keyword models. I know that is an opinion not everyone shares, but I think she has specific strengths. She definitely, there are things she's not good at, but I don't think that her strengths are particularly narrow. I think the things that counter her are somewhat narrow now, although not as narrow as they used to be. There's more anti-healing than there used to be. But I still think that the stuff that counters her is sufficiently uncommon or inefficient that I would put her in B still. Maybe bottom of B, but definitely B. And I also love her as a second master, not just with Max. Like, she's just a good second master. She draws cards. She heals your models. She can do 4 damage on a tactical action, as you said.
You took her to really, really, really strong effect in round 3 of a local. Why don't you just tell the folks really quickly about the Cadmus 2 Jedza 1 combo you pulled out?
Yeah, I mean, I was basically what I was using her for is A, drawing a bunch of cards, and B, I was playing against a list with a bunch of hard to kill. I was playing against a mercenary list and knock stuff down to hard to kill, and then I just park Jedza next to it and be like, all right, your turn.
That's super rude. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are some strats where I like Jedza 1 probably a bit better than I would have in previous GGs. Like, I think she does reasonably well at things like wagons and guard the stash. I think she's going to struggle for like covert ops and yeah, she's definitely really good at cursed objects if your opponent can't like do the thing, right? So like she's got good matchups and she's got some like okay matchups. I like B better than I like C.
All right.
It's hard for me to justify that like you're not just gonna windmill slam her for cursed objects if it's like an opponent that you know isn't going to be able to take tech for it. Like 0 strategy points is 0 strategy points. Let's be real.
Yeah, there are some keywords that just like look at her and just be like, oh no. I mean, I'm in danger.
Oh no! So Ralph, I think we refer to that as the Ralph Wiggum on a bus meme, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And the Ralph Wiggum on a bus meme's favorite friend, concerned dog drinking coffee in a room that's burning on fire, where everything's fine. That's those 2 memes kind of go together.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for explaining memes to me. I didn't understand this actually.
Can you explain Vietnam dog to me? Because that's probably what like those models feel like about the 6th time they've been revived by Jedza.
Oh my god. So is that the word? Is that the word of the Pope?
That's the word of the Pope.
Okay, cool. I really like Jedza 1. I recognize that she's not like the best master in ES by a long shot, but I really like her kit in general. I've played a lot with both 1 and 2 now, and I've really enjoyed the flexibility that she has. And she has a lot of really fun corner case abilities on her card. Like, a lot of people don't really understand that Jedza can produce an unresisted 4 damage against a model pretty easily, actually, once a turn. And I've used that to snipe some models off. I know, Sam, you've done that before, where you do the heal and then you cheat in the severe with the ram trigger, right?
Yeah. Haku talked about that.
Yeah. And I love Lost Knowledge. Anything with Lost Knowledge is great. So yeah, in my mind, she's B tier. She's probably not the front of B. She's probably not the very back of B. I don't know, somewhere in B in my mind.
All right, well, we'll move on to the title. I'll leave her currently in the back of B because I'm still every time I want Jedza to be good, and every time I'm a little disappointed. Jedza 2 to me is an interesting conundrum, the same fault. So I didn't talk about this during 1, but I'll talk about during 2. The question, you have to ask your local TO, and most of at least the ones in America I've asked. This does not work on Vassal though, but most of the tournaments I've played in person, does Grave Goo turn the auras that the models have in her keyword into damage 1, poison 1, hazardous terrain? And most of the time, that answer is going to be yes. When that's the case, obviously, more race become a lot more valuable because they're one of the people that keep that aura up. Kurgan, just as an amazing model, also can have a massive 3-inch aura of hazardous poison damage. And yeah, overall, there's a lot of really good stuff you could do with that. So she's a lot better if that works. Even if it doesn't work, I think she's still perfectly fine. I'm going to put her slightly above the other one and slightly above Cooper. Irreducible damage is irreducible damage. Moving these, placing these markers, even if they're just geode markers and not even more race, is really good. Dredge up is really good. Off the path is really good currently. At the moment, what she does is enable a lot of good like movement effects on your crew, as well as just card cycling while getting people up the board. And I think that's the big thing that she does that I like is a lot. She's instead of like pure support, she's actually participating in everything. That being said, because of how vulnerable Seeker is when they don't have the comeback to life mechanic, you're hiring a lot more out of keyword with this version of Jedza in my mind. And it's not bad. It's a little annoying, but overall, I think she still has a decent enough tools, and Exis has good enough out of keyword models where you can hire that really help turn her on. And her by herself with irreducible damage is potential min 4 irreducible damages.
Here's my hot take. I think she's an A. I have had a lot of success with this model recently. Like I love this keyword. I love the aesthetic. I love the way they play. And I think that she does. I disagree that she needs to go out of keyword. I know that Seeker is not the toughest keyword out there, but I don't think they're so fragile that like they're not hireable. And Life Leech is so good with Chronicles because so many Chronicles are like they're designed to go off when you heal by spending an AP, and when you're just passively healing during opponents' activations, the timing on that is really, really strong, and it really like lets you do interesting things. Like just for an example, you can throw Jedza up in there. The opponent activates a beater next to her, being like, "Oh, here's my opponent's master," and then it activates Life Leech. She heals 1, and then that pushes McCabe up, and now suddenly the model they just activated is engaged by McCabe and has to hit it. Just stuff like that. I've done that in games. I think that she has like off the path is super strong in this GG. I think that she just does an enormous amount of damage. She also synergizes well. Like you can do some out of keyword hiring, and out of keyword hiring Vitagis and then pushing a pit trap into somebody with dredge up and then death slapping them through it is so mean. It's so mean. Because then you get your stat 7, 5, 6, 7. Like, oh my god. And she just once she gets in there and she gets sort of in the swing of things and she's starting to life leech and she's starting to kill things and stack life tokens, it can just the amount of damage she can deal very quickly is really, really high. So I've been a huge fan of her. I think that she has enough tools to like compete in a lot of different pools because she has this amazing ability to affect elsewhere on the board with dredge up. And she also with the Kurgan, you can kind of just fling her up to where you need her. So I really, really like this model. I've had a lot of fun playing her. I'm not going to play her into Witness ever. But other than that, I think she's great and I really enjoy her. So I think A is a totally fine place for her.
For the viewers at home, totally. Why not Witness?
Because if you can't declare triggers into Damien, she's hitting him for min 2. And then he just heals it all. And then you're sad. I guess you could kill Lilith
in that crew, though.
I mean, Haku only has one thing to say about that, which is just witness me.
You can her ability to kill Lohith is pretty good, but beyond that, like, oof, don't love having her triggers canceled. She becomes sad.
Mr. Pope.
Yeah, I think Sam spoke enough for all of us on that one.
Sorry, I just love this model. I went off.
Yeah,
what
sure.
a pleasant way of saying Sam talks too much.
She's got some sauce, but like, I think the fact that your keyword is mostly designed around her first aura working and not having that aura makes it kind of hard for her to be like always the case, right? Like, so I think B's a fine spot. Like, you just got to be careful because, like, your models aren't tanky, and you just got to know that.
Yeah. Well, is that the word of the Pope?
That's the word.
I'll at least move her bluff base.
I like her in high B. I think that's kind of where she lives. I don't have as many reps with her as Sam does, but I have a lot of reps with her now. She does a lot of really cool stuff. irreducible damage that you can Hadouken forward through a rock that you throw at somebody is pretty cool. Yeah, she's great. I don't think she's overtly as powerful as something like Max 2 or Cadmus 2, but I do think she's in the same conversation as Max 1, Bass 2, Cooper 2, and those are the ones that we're putting in front of her. So to me, she's a really solid high B tier master with a crew that basically looks like they were inspired by Final Fantasy VII, which is one of my favorite video games of all time. So let's ride.
You know what? I'm gonna keep her in B tier just because one thing. I'm gonna blame her for losing Captain Con. And by losing, I mean coming in second because
if you ain't first, you're last. Ricky Bobby.
Yeah, exactly. Because I played her for a round, and then I death touched attack, discard 2 life tokens, Black Joker, and then next round I attacked, discard 2 life tokens, Black Joker. And that really pissed me off.
Well, you know,
blame a model for flipping black.
Haku, if you're into constructive feedback,
Yes.
I have some things you could do to improve that play. You should try not flipping the Black Joker on your master attacks.
Thank you.
Yeah, dude. The whole point is to not have that happen, dude.
I think just try that and then report back to us and see if it comes out differently.
Try and actually, Haku. My feedback is instead of the Black Joker, try flipping the Red Joker and see what happens.
Just let me discard the tokens after I flip damage. All right. Let's move on.
What do you want to be, Yoko too?
Yeah, exactly. I do. Let's move on to Anya. I don't like Anya. Everyone knows I don't like Anya. Syndicate is a nice little buff with the starter Outcast starter set. So that part's neat. Mostly because Yannick is just a disgustingly broken model. Just less so in Explorers. That being said, it's still fine. Better than Ivan. I don't know how much better, but it's better than Ivan. Can do some interesting things with Bleeding Edge. The problem is the whole crew is very frail. And that's not great in this GG, where so many actions are just going to be attacking, specifically Masters. I think this model just dies. And that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a fine place for her. I've tried her. I don't love her. Like, she's fragile. She does damage. She has a stat 7 attack with good triggers that she can build in. But, like, I think her keyword after Yannick kind of falls off a bit. Well, Winston's good. Yannick and Winston. I actually hire Winston out of keyword a lot. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm not thrilled by her, and I feel like if you're trying to play a ES master who wants to, like, get up into your opponent's face and punch them, just play Max or play Jedza too. You'll have a better time.
So, like, she's reasonable against a decent amount of things. Like, there's still something to be said about just flipping a scheme marker down and then just pushing them 3 times with a Union Buster to do 3 damage in an AoE to a group of people. Like, that's still good. Definitely keeps her out of D tier. I don't think it puts her out of C tier though. But I think Union Buster's like surprisingly quite good at Guard the Stash. Like, that's the one place where I think I could really see Anya one shine in this GG. If it's not there, I don't think it's anywhere.
Is that the word of the Pope?
That would be the word.
I definitely don't hate her as much as Haku hates her, but I definitely don't love her. I think she deserves definitely to be in front of Nexus 1. In my mind, she's okay. Well, in my mind, at least she's a poor man's Lady Justice, which is like her floor, which I know is really bad. Like a poor man's Lady J1, basically.
Man, shut that one down fast.
I don't know. I'm just. I guess I don't have what it takes to defend her. I'm not dying on this hill. I'm dying on a different hill. That's fine. She's fine where she is.
Honestly, the biggest problem is like they needed a way for like Price of Progress to like not deal damage, or like a way to get shielded to the crew that the crew does like just accidentally, like Mayfang 2, right? Like it's
you
just
mean like the Emissary?
Kind of. But nerfed Emissary is nerfed Emissary, and he's slow. But yeah, it's they just kill themselves. the whole crew just kills itself. But yeah. Onward to Rail Magnate. Rail Magnate's fine. This is where I complain about the fact that Yannick doesn't work with Rail Magnate the way I want it to work, where you can't do it all in one action. It takes multiple, which is inconvenient due to the fact that you can't do that with interacts then when using Yannick. You have to have some inherent way of dropping a scheme marker that's different than interacting dropping it. Not a big deal, but it is an annoying one for drawing cards.
Okay.
And I feel like that's just a small change that costs a couple extra AP. It's not a big deal. You hire the Catalan Riflemen. They can
Yeah, the
do it just fine.
Catalan Riflemen do it just totally fine.
So you can set up your Drudge Summoning. That being said, even after Drudge Summoning, I don't feel like the crew does a terrible too much. I'll be kind enough to the people who tell me how good it is and how much they like the model to put it in low B behind Jedza, mostly just because I still don't see it. And the only times I've played against it, it doesn't do great. But man, Unseen Manipulator, it's just a really annoying ability to have on a card. So
Especially in a keyword where you can bake and executes.
yeah. So my biggest problem is still 10 wounds, defense 5. It's just frail. But she's not the one that's supposed to go forward. I guess my other part is the rest of the syndicate keyword besides Yannick just starts going downhill pretty fast.
Winston's fine.
I'm not the biggest fan of Winston. I will say Rook went up in value because Slippery went up in value a good chunk. So I think that's the main thing that's holding it in B for me is I like how much better Rook is currently. Because Slippery is disgusting in this current GG.
Yeah.
Yeah, Slippery is real good. Yeah, I don't know. I have this one is totally question mark because I haven't actually played her. I really want to. So I'm not going to disagree strongly with you. I would have believed if you said high C. I would have believed if you said low B. I really like her. I like Drudges. The Drudge mechanic is just like cool and fun and exciting to me. I love the Unseen Manipulator. I think it's really cool. But you know, her activations themselves, like she has good front of card, but her activations seem like they're sometimes kind of underwhelming. Probably. I'm not sure. I love her totem. Her totem's real good. But yeah, I mean, I think that she is her big downside is that she's very fragile and that she has a stat 5 attack. But those two things aside, I don't think those are enough to like make her crappy or unplayable. So I think I agree. Low B, high C.
Yeah.
Hope.
So that seems fine. I like the Unseen Manipulator possibility of funneling AP through models they can build and execute. Like if you had a lot of shielded, I think that'd actually be quite good. I do like her ability to funnel AP through her totem. Her totem does have the problem of just like dying, but her totem also just has some wicked actions for healing the whole crew back up or just, doing damage. And I think she's got some good tools in general. She also can make people hazardous, I think, on one of her actions. I can't remember.
It's the good one, the Obey. It's just a pro on the Obey.
She got some good sauce.
In Obey, that's a tactical. So, I mean, obviously it can't target enemies, but whatever. It's disgusting not having to worry about concealing.
The biggest problem she has is that, if you can't drain your opponent's hand fast enough, she gets pretty fragile. But
you're theoretically always taking her alongside Winston, right? So I always thought of her as a 7 versus 5 scenario from Gun, right? Card advantage counted.
I mean, you can give her flush to make her a little bit.
I don't really think it's for me about how many cards you have versus how many cards they have. It's about how many cards they have in general, right? You want to limit the number of their cheats because your models are like defense 5.
Yeah, okay.
Still not convinced by
Okay.
Winston.
She does hand
Yeah, I'm
strip.
also not the hugest Winston person.
She does strip
Yeah.
the hand with flexible morality too.
Nobody wants to go for a dirigible ride. Jeez.
It's okay, but I don't think he's matchup winning or even an always take for the crew. That'll get me flamed.
Damn.
Oh yeah,
No,
I
I'm
Winston.
with.
I love Winston, dude. I'm
When
with.
you
I'm
have-
I
with-
don't. Yeah.
When you have HP less than your soul stone cost and a crew that hurts yourself.
I mean, look, I don't think Winston is like a metagame defining type model, but I think he's really good. I'd take him every time. He's not like the kind of model where you're like, oh my god, the reason I have to play this keyword is to take Winston. But I think he's totally fine.
Yeah, I really like Winston a lot. Oh, I also like just going, who wants to go for a mustache ride? I do, and then I activate the ritual ride, and it's great. Yeah, that's the main reason for me. But I don't know. I think she's a little bit better than you guys are giving her credit for. I like playing with her. I agree that what Sam said is she has a lot of really good front of card abilities. And then what I've found is sometimes if she's not really set up to have a really strong activation, I can often feel underwhelmed with her activations themselves. But I'm a little torn on whether or not that is kind of part and parcel of her design, and that a lot of her power is carried through her synergy with the Cataclysm Riflemen, which I always hire as many of those bad boys as I can, or her synergy with Yannick, even though Haku doesn't love it as much. So I'm kind of torn on whether or not that's like by design, or if she's not quite as good as I think she is. So for me, it's probably like middle of B, but I could be argued back from that, I guess.
Yeah, I actually just feel like B's stacked a little bit with a lot of like near A's, where I just don't feel comfortable putting her higher on that and against those masters.
I'm totally fine with that, sir.
I don't think she's better than Jedza.
Yeah, like that's what it comes down to for me.
I'd agree with that.
If Drudges worked how they worked in MSCU and just gave Unionized to Syndicate models, maybe. But the fact that they need to actually activate and then flip a 6 is a little annoying. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're mindless, so you can't just like pop them up and suddenly have unionized where you need it. That's a pretty big difference maker.
It's a huge to me it's the main one. Especially because they really want the plus flips because their health is crap. All right.
Their health pool is just to limit the number of times you can hurt yourself for Galvanize.
I meant the health pool of Syndicate, not the health pool of Drudges in particular. Like your 7 wounds, Winston. Lol. Onwards to McCabe. Ahoy. Giddy up. I don't know where I put McCabe 1. Is it just Losi? He's better than Ivan. He has to be better than Ivan. Maybe he's not. I don't know. He's not great. A lot of people that are currently shutting down demise effects really makes McCabe sad. The fact that his net gun is kind of trash. Everything he does got nerfed. It's just sad. McCabe's a sad guy. And in X's, he's more sad than he is in Thunders because versatile models in X's kind of suck. But Secret Passage into what am I blanking on the drop 2 scheme markers is pretty strong right now. Secret Passage's false claim is still pretty strong in this GG. So maybe I'm underrating him because he brings that to X's, and X's don't really have access to a lot of good scheme marker dropping. But you would never do it with McCabe 1, so I'm comfortable still saying he sucks.
Yeah, I feel like the stuff that McCabe 1 is good at is stuff that you did in GG2 that you don't do in GG3. Like, I would love to take him in Symbols. Symbols doesn't exist, so he's not nearly as good at holding territory as his title. His ability to like make enemy models kind of be slow and staggered with the net gun is less significant if the enemy models are already kind of parked next to a stash marker, for instance. Like they're already where they need to be. So, and I don't think his keyword is that good at just like plowing into a formation of enemy models and blowing them up and scattering them. They're kind of more sneaky, picking people off. So, I don't know. I think he's fine in C. I think he's not D, but I can't see myself ever taking him over his title.
I think he's better than Ivan, and here's what he does. On his bullwhip, he has a built-in 1-inch push. And the 1-inch push that you don't have to have any triggers for or any nonsense is just kind of valuable in this GG for things like stash or covert. I think you'll see him more in covert than you would in stash.
Oh, definitely.
Especially since the net gun also has a trigger to drag or pull and drag. So you can just cover a wide area of the board of denial on like last activation if you took in like Jin for pass tokens or something, just to make sure that you just get to go with McCabe and say, all right, it's covert. I have to make sure 3 models aren't on these points. All right, I'll stone, shoot the net gun at this guy. I'll ride with me up to this guy, bop him for 1, and then I'll walk charge the other guy. And you can just do that, right? Deny 3 points. It's a little bit more work than maybe some other masters are right now, but like, it's a thing.
Yeah, he's not in D.
Is that the word? Is that the word of the Pope?
Yeah, that's the word of the Pope.
I used to love taking this guy in symbols, and I used to love taking him when false claim was a really strong ability, because I just really like playing with race trolls. They're just really, I just think they're neat, you know?
Nice, they're neat. That's
Yeah.
the Marge with a rock meme.
There we go. Yes.
Isn't it a potato?
It's she's in a kitchen and she's holding up whatever you put in the Photoshop thing, and it's just I think she's neat. And then the other strong favorite for the neat meme is Rich's favorite meme, which is when Bender from Futurama takes out a camera and clicks and goes neat. That's another strong neat meme.
Okay. Any other good neat memes before we move on?
No, those are the two I got. But
Doug,
regardless,
how high are you right now?
I'm not going to answer that question, Landon.
Fine. No one but a court order can force you to answer that.
Okay, well, yeah, she's we're whoever is editing this, whatever editor, don't put in the part where he asks how high I am. Just let people discern that by my behavior. All right. So yeah, so I just think he's pretty medium. I don't know. I guess I would put him where you guys put him. I don't have a strong opinion on this.
You know what's actually something about him is that if you are taking him because you want to hire hucksters, because hucksters are really good in this GG, the fact that he makes hucksters TN like a lot more
Actually
reasonable.
workable.
Yeah, like it means you can actually like reasonably see your passage with them. That is a thing. That's something to think about.
Yep. I was going to mention that when I was talking about it, but like it's kind of implied. Like if you can play a huckster game where you don't have to engage your opponent score 8, then like he's okay at that.
That's pretty narrow though. That doesn't get out of sight.
Yeah, it definitely keeps him where he is for sure.
All right, well, onwards to McCabe 2, Tomb Delver. I'm just going to slam him in A behind base. I think behind base? Yeah, behind base. Yeah, this guy's just good. The upgrades are still good, and he actually has a card that supports it. One of the reasons why I don't actually like McCabe 1 anymore is because this guy just feels like a better version. He's a lot more tanky, draws you cards, slapped on a extended reach, which is great value anywhere. And yeah, it's just really good. His melee attack is just kind of disgusting.
I'd put him above Basse and maybe even above Cooper, to be honest. Like the thing that GG3 really wants you to do is like take and hold territory and and first of all, move enemy models, which he does, but also take and hold territory and just like tell your opponent, like, you can't come in here. And he's so good at that. Like he draws a bunch of cards. First of all, he draws the one for free, but you put Know the Warrior on him, and then you just like take 3 attacks, draw 3 cards. I mean, not always, obviously, but like, I mean, and he's amazing as a second master, like, especially with the Nexus kids. The less said about that, the better. But I just think he's really good. Like, he's trying to remove him is really like awful and punishing and nasty. And he can just turn areas of the board, and not just where he's standing, because he can throw those upgrades on other people, and suddenly they've got the aura too. He can turn areas of the board into just like nasty little quagmires for your opponent. So I really like him in this GG. I think he's got a lot of play.
Seems reasonable.
Okay.
That's
a quick short word from the guy who actually plays this model.
I don't know.
All right,
too used to things. Seems reasonable. I mean, like, yeah, he displaces things. He has probably the better ways to make cards happen. Like, no, the Warrior's always been good. Still good with 1 for all the same reasons that it's good with 2. Yeah, I think just like the things that 2 brings to the table are very often just going to be the things that you wanted out of 1, just because mobility's not quite as valued this GG as it was to previous GGs. What can I say? Ignoring Hazardous is also nice. Like, I don't know. Hazardous is probably coming up more this GG. He's good. I still like him where he is. A's a good spot for him.
He's got a min 3 precise.
Yeah, he's got a min 3, sometimes precise.
Is that the word of the Pope?
I will.
Sorry, go ahead, Haku. My bad.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say I do think that the reason why I keep him a little lower, especially in Explorers, is because Curse Objects is just worse in Explorers in my opinion because we don't have good minions. The whole faction doesn't really have
actually the
good
name of
minions.
that ability too?
Yeah, cursed
Yeah.
objects. Yeah, it is.
Of course, there's a strategy and ability with the same name. Got it.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. The
They
ability,
what do you think they
is
should call it? Hexed things,
something like cursed artifacts.
enchanted
bird.
stuff.
I like enchanted stuff.
I think you should
Negatively
just call the
enchanted
strategy
stuff.
hot potato because that's what it is.
Mhm.
But regardless,
Enchanted crap in my backpack. That's
Crap in my
that's what we call the trigger, I think, or the ability. Yeah.
Maledicted
so-
items.
maledicted items. So, anyways, speaking of his, I just think he also has slightly worse hires to take in Explorers. So, like, you probably lean a bit more on his keyword. I think Sadir's better this gaining grounds though, so there's that too. I've like people always shit talk Sadir a little bit and never really understood it. For a while, he wasn't the best choice in Thunders, but like you could still take him with other stuff and it was good. And like I still like Sadir. I think Sadir's a good model.
I definitely see you field Sadir a whole lot, which has helped me consider him more often. Kind of like I always thought of him as like a poor man's mad dog bracket.
He's a pretty bad mad dog bracket. I'll give you that.
Yeah, yeah. But
what about ill-fated articles?
Hot potato. Moving on.
Okay, is that the word of the Pope?
Yeah, that's the word of the Pope. I don't have too much to say about him.
Okay. I like him. I think he's good. I think he's a solid middle front of A. I think he's where he needs to be. I don't have any original thoughts that haven't already been said by my compatriots, but yeah, it's pretty sweet to have a fast boy with a 2-inch reach that min threes Yon low dogs to death, because he definitely does that when you put enough. What are we calling it, Sam? What are his upgrades called?
Damned goods.
Damned goods. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep doing this. I got a thesaurus open.
Okay. Good.
Spooky
Okay.
silverware.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. If you put enough spooky silverware on him, he just rips through Yon-Lo dogs. So, yeah, that's why I think he's particularly good in the meta. Because you're just gonna see a lot of Yon-Lo too, because he's the top master in 2 factions that are fairly well represented. So,
Would you say he's the top dog?
he's the top dog. Dog. Yes, I would.
All right, so let's talk about some versatiles, not keywords.
Yeah, let's get right to it. So I think I'm going to take a little bit of a hot take here. I mean, besides the fact that Jin has to be included because Jin Bakura is the new Brock Inspector on how broken he is. Past token generation, OP. And famously, Ivan has the absolute worst keyword, which is why my top 3 models are going to be Jin, Gibson, Nocturne.
Ooh, that is
just
spicy.
slam 3 Ivan models. So the reason why I'm a big fan of Gibson Nocturne is they work in a lot of keywords on turning on the keywords. Nocturne are just pretty efficient at moving your own models, really efficient at it, while also setting up some concealing terrain for some defensive tech. And worst comes to worst, you normally have a flush with cash hanging around, so you'll get a rebate on them when they eventually die and take some damage for you. On top of that, Gibson kind of needs it for the package because Gibson is disgustingly good tools for the job model that has Surge on a trigger to heal people, and he can do that to the Nocturne to just draw cards, as well as the simple fact that he can, with the Nocturne, give out fast focus turn 1 to 2 models. Is actually disgustingly good. I'm a big fan of this in Cooper to fast focus. Crypsis Cores, for example, are a really good one to fast focus. And Jedza, Gravegoo, Damned, McCabe, Kurgan, and Jedza 2. It's a really good package in that version of Jedza, I think. And overall, it's really great in Nexus kids too, mostly because they don't really care too much about being inside Cadmus keyword. So it's a really good package. You can kind of slot in anywhere to help unpack your deploy while also getting a ton of value in mid to late game with Gibson. especially in Cooper. Sometimes you have to draw that 13 in order to make sure his gun goes off. And a lot of masters have attack like that. First parasite token Nexus kids hand out, so important. You want a good severe for that, because then that just starts the train rolling. So yeah, Gibson really strong. Ivan sucks.
Well, we all love tools for the job.
The Nexus kids do run trains on people.
They sure do. So I would say my first is gonna be Jin, because I think just Jin's busted. I'm not gonna go into detail. We all know. I'm gonna draw, derisive grunts from everyone here, but cheers from the broader populace when I say botanists. I know you guys hate them. I think the botanists were not good in GG2. I think they're fine here. They're pretty durable models with they're fast, have onward and planted roots. So for the strats that want you to just like be near an objective and keep and stick around there and not die, they're pretty solid at that. So they don't do damage, but that's not what they're for. So I don't know. Like they're not good in every pool, but when you need them, they're really good.
Yeah, I begrudgingly like them in covert objects, not covert objects.
Guard.
No, covert operations.
Oh, yeah. That's fine. Guard too.
Also gave us 2 COs.
Yeah. And then
I think a bit fightier than I like them for, but sorry, go on.
I mean, that's fine. That's fine. I get that. And then I think my third is gonna be Vatagi's, just because pit traps are so good, and there's so many like stupid tricks you can pull with pit traps. Like almost every master that we've rated highly can do something stupid with pit traps. I mean, Jedza can push them, and Cooper's got all the pit trap play, and like even Anya can kind of like shove people into traps. Max can like flip people into traps with her bonus action. There's just a lot of and Massive Tentacles people into traps. There's just a lot of cool, stupid things you can do with pit traps. And Vatagi are a nice, efficient way of getting them out. And they also have a very reasonable gun and card draw. So yeah, Vatagi.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Tidecaller 3 times because he can toss 3 times. But
he can toss 2 times per activation. So 6.
3 times, sir.
His bonus allows him to toss again.
That's right. That's right.
But the other ones I would actually pick are probably somewhat more conventional. Jin is still just a very powerful model that does everything he needs to do, from like bury, and then can do a couple of other things that are cool when he's unburied, like resources are resources. I think Emissary is still worth it for a decent number of crews. Like, sure, he's not the monster he once was, but he's still like a pretty decent monster as far as like having good stats. Intimidating Roar is actually just, it was one of those things you did sometimes in GG2. It's something I think you'll do a lot in GG3. And then beyond that, you just also have the idea of, I've got your back. Sometimes it's just really good movement. So you don't necessarily always put up the aura now. You just have other reasonable fallback plans.
He's still a def 7 take the hit.
Yeah, and like he still does that job well. Like some crews just need or want that. Like I think Max 1 finds it reasonably useful. I think like Anya does too.
Even Max 2 does. A lot of keeping the
keeping Orville alive is just helpful.
Orville, yeah.
And
you can always intentionally fail the teleport duel.
And he's the only in faction take the hit option against Terra. So
yeah, so like you've got some reasonably good stuff that he does that's still important, I think. So those are my 3. Yeah, Tidecaller cool. He tosses the Emissary. They synergize.
It's the word of the Pope.
That's the word of the Pope.
Okay. For me, I think Jin is the number 1 for every reason that everybody's already said. Then my second would actually probably be the Damned. I really like playing with that model. It's really fun. It often can kind of go off and do its own thing. It has a pretty cool punch attached to it. And I really enjoy playing with it. It's got a suitless leap. It's a good time all around. And then Winston Finnegan would probably be my third. I just really like hiring Winston Finnegan because he has Arcane Reservoir. Dirigible Ride is kind of like an easy button sometimes to really help a Fubard unpack scenario. It's really bailed me out a couple of times, which has been nice. I like the card advantage. And plus he, in GG2, he had Don't Mind Me and it was awesome, but I think the value on Don't Mind Me has gone down. So, maybe he's, not as good in GG3 for that reason, but I really like playing with him. He's a fun model. That's it. That's all, folks.
All right. All right.
All right.
So I'm gonna do an outro real quick, and then I'm just gonna. All right. So hope everyone. Start over. All right. I hope everyone enjoyed that. That was our final tier list. We have now ranked every master in the game in a completely objective manner from best to worst. And if you ever lose a game, it's because you didn't listen to us and pay attention to our tier list. And if you win, it's because you did. So we'll take both the credit and the blame. Anyways, this has been a lot of fun. We really hope you keep watching our channel. We've got lots of great Malifaux content coming and content for other games as well. If you like this video, please drop us a like and subscribe to our channel for more really cool content on Malifaux and other games that we're covering. Please also check out Badpo Haku, where you can see tier lists. You can see some really high-level play on Vassal, and they're just really great guys. You can see a lot of the good content they're producing. And if you think we're wrong about anything, if you have any ideas about masters we should have rated differently, or if you have any questions, please join our Discord. There'll be a link in the description, and you can engage with us and talk about Malifaux and all your favorite masters. So, till next time, thanks for coming by the Danger Planet.
Just get a notification that said you're being recorded.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, cool. Just so you know, you're being recorded, gentlemen.
Okay.
Holy fuck, I'm being recorded. Oh god, we gotta stop
Oh
now.
shit! No.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I got it. I'm just gonna bounce out of here because it's pretty late here. So.
Yeah. Sam,
good.
have you been recording audio this whole time?
Oh shit! No, yeah, I've been recording. Don't worry.
Okay, cool. All right.
Okay.
Round.
I
So
don't
the
even
crew, the
remember
Crossroads
that at
7
all, but that
crew
was the
is
one.
if you just have the 7 of them, it's 8 soul stones, right?
Well, yeah.
because
They're
Because
all
one of them is a
7
master.
costs.
And one of
Right,
them
and
is
one
a
of them you don't
master.
pay for, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So here's the real tech. What is the competitive leader for the Crossroads 7 crew?
Envy.
You
Yeah.
think so?
Always
Yeah.
envy.
Yeah,
I
so
buy
That being
that.
said,
I
I've
buy that.
played all of them. They all work.
Is it envy mostly because he's better with 3 AP or because of the upgrades?
Yes. He's better with 3 AP, the upgrades. You also get the higher soulstone miner for your Crossroad 8.
Okay, I buy that. You
Go
so
to
you-
2 soulstones, really?
You go to, you mean, are they 6 soulstones? Yeah, you go
No,
to
there's
2
7
soulstones.
costs.
There's no way in hell
No.
the soulstone miner is 7 costs.
Oh,
No,
no,
minor,
I'm
minors are
saying-
6. Minors are
Yeah.
6.
No, I was
So if
saying
you take a minor, you have 2.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but that's
if you
fine.
take a minor, you have 2 soulstones.
I mean, you take a minor and you take.
But he gives you back a soulstone, right?
every
Yeah.
turn. Yeah, you take
Every
a
turn.
minor,
But
and
then
you
you're
take,
not getting an upgrade, which
well, no,
means
no,
you're
that's
not
what I'm
getting
saying.
Arcane Reservoir.
Then you take
I mean,
Arcane
I
Reservoir,
guess you can.
and you have the 0 stone crew.
No, you don't take Arcane Reservoir.
You could, and you can't anymore because Arcane Reservoir is a living upgrade now.
Yeah, living only. You can't put it on.
I mean, you can put it on any of the other Crossroads 7.
No,
Yeah, but then you
that's
don't
the
get the
minion
card.
part.
It's
Is
the
Arcane
minion- the
Reservoir.
minion part is the trigger.
Oh,
So you have to
Ooh.
hire a silent one and slap it on.
Yeah. Word propainted.
I have
talking my paint shop right
I
now.
have a doctorate painted Ivan crew right now.
Oh,
It's
oh, oh, is
painted
it-
by
no,
a
no.
guy with a doctorate. It's that good.
I don't have a doctorate. What the fuck are you on about?
I painted Ivan. Get the fuck out
No,
of
you
here.
It's a
didn't.
juris-
Are you
juris
fucking kidding
doctorate.
me right now?
He painted most of Ivan. That's actually true.
I can't
What
wait
the
to look
fuck is this
closely.
erasure that I am
Damn.
experiencing?
That's
Damn,
right.
boys.
You painted the
I
Deva.
painted your Deva.
It's fine. I'm not going to stress about it.
Okay.
This is just because I'm on vacation. I'm fine. We're all fine. Everything's
Okay.
fine.
Sure.
Cool looking.
They're dope looking. I just don't like. They're like spider chicks things, right? Isn't that their
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
they
much.
got like a bunch of eyes. got
They look
6
like.
eyes.
Have you guys ever seen Love, Death, and Robots? The first season of Love, Death, and Robots.
Oh
Yeah, I
yeah.
watched
This
all that.
episode. There's this episode where this guy thinks he's making it with some really hot chick in a space
Oh, and it's
station.
a spider. Yeah.
Yeah, and it ends up being like basically this spell eater looking thing. Ugh.
Yeah, for me, for me, it's like, yeah, come on, bring on the spell eater. Like,
Gross.
get rid of
man.
that illusion.
Hey,
This is
I
the
did.
better version.
Gross, man. Gross.
Wait, that also happens in Divinity.
Yeah, people just making it with spiders in sci-fi
Why?
games. You know.
Why is that a thing?
I don't know,
Too
man.
many, too
Don't
many
knock
drow
it till you try
fetishists.
it.
Sam, that makes me both curious and uncomfortable at the same time. Bravo, sir. Bravo.
Let's move on before this gets a little more uncomfortable.